Fake cop sexually assaults two women. So why did it take more than 36 hours for police to warn the public? Plus, what you need to know to stay safe.
Opening statements in the Tex MacGyver trial in less than 10 hours tonight. My dream team and I take you back to the scene of the shooting.
Gusty winds being blamed for at least one death today, and now a county in mourning after a volunteer firefighter is killed.
A random act of kindness goes viral, and the hero says he was just simply doing what we all should do.
But first, windy weather wreaks havoc all over the place today. Drivers on Chattahoochee Avenue in northwest Atlanta had to dodge down power lines while a fallen tree is taking the blame for killing a man in Dawsonville. So, Chris, are we still at risk for more trees falling down tonight?
Well, Vinny, that's an interesting question because we're watching the winds die down. They're not as blustery as they were earlier, but with the saturated ground and with some of these winds that are left behind, it's still strong enough to maybe bring down some trees or some tree limbs. Right now, we have winds at 17 miles an hour. Earlier today, we had a peak wind gust of 45 miles an hour in Atlanta. So this has calmed down just a little bit, but still pretty breezy out there in the area. Here's a look at the wind gusts that we have right now. The Atlanta, Carrollton, Peachtree City, LaGrange missing at this hour, but you can see these wind gusts are a little bit higher in Gainesville where it's 24 mile an hour winds, 11 mile an hour winds, 18 mile an hour wind gust over in the Marietta area. While you are sleeping tonight, you might hear that wind whipping up a little bit more, but the good news is it is beginning to calm down a little bit. By morning, we'll have about 8 mile an hour winds, and then during the day tomorrow, yeah, it is going to be breezy, but just not as windy or as blustery as it was out there today. And for many people, that wind was just a nuisance because, of course, it made everything feel a lot colder out there. Joining me right now, Faith Abube. This wind also proved to be deadly, though, earlier today.
Yes, and it's being blamed for the death of a firefighter this evening in Dawsonville. He was just driving through when he was killed this afternoon. The Fannin County Fire Chief tells me Stanley Henson was well known across his county and well loved. The volunteer firefighter driving along Highway 136 when the winds blew a tree onto his car, killing him. Now take a look at pictures we found on his Facebook page, a public page there. You can tell he was jovial. He had a good spirit about him. Fire Chief Larry Thomas from Fannin County tells me that Henson worked a car crash this morning in Fannin County and then got on the road to his second volunteer firefighter job near Athens. Investigators tell us when Henson got to this area of Highway 136 in Dawsonville, out of nowhere, this huge tree slammed onto his truck and crushed it. Denise Warcock drove up to the accident.
I just stopped and started praying for the individual because it didn't look good.
He was a good firefighter. There's nothing I can say that could actually stand up to the job that he did for this county. But it's just a sad thing right now for the department, and it will leave a void.
Well, Henson leaves behind a wife and 2 children. And Chris, the sad part about this, other than the death itself, is the fact that the fire chief tells me he was up for a promotion. He was supposed to be promoted to lieutenant in Fannin County in just a few weeks, and this happened.
Just going from one job to another, and yet some freak accident like this happened. So thanks for that report, Faith. Vinny, coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to talk more about that wind and how it's ushering in also the cold air. We're going to break down not only a freeze warning, but also a freeze watch in effect, and we're not finished with it after tonight. I'll have more on that coming up.
All right, thanks so much, Chris. We're getting some new details tonight regarding the man posing as a police officer, pulling over women, and then sexually assaulting them. Now, the 2 attacks happened within 4 hours of each other, one at Nash Road in northwest Atlanta and the other at Terrell Mill Road in Cobb County. Police now believe it is the same person. 2 agencies now are working together, and they say the suspect is really working his character, even going back to his car with one of the victim's license and registration and acting as though he was processing it while he was still out there. So Christy Ether's been working this story for us, and Christy, the big question is, why did it take 36 hours for them to ultimately let everyone know about this?
Vinny, that's a great question, one a lot of you are asking. So we asked APD today, and they said they had an extremely viable lead. They thought they knew who that guy could be. So they wanted to work it, and they worked it and tried to run down that lead first. They say it didn't pan out the way they wanted it to, and when it didn't, that's when they released all the information.
All right, so now the victim isn't even meeting a sketch artist until Wednesday, so why is this now slowing down?
Another good question. The delay here has to do with the victim. She said that was the day she was first available. So the police officer said they actually spoke to that. Take a listen.
I can emphatically state that as a general rule, we try not to lean on victims of sexual assault. So if she's comfortable with Wednesday, while we would like it to be sooner, Wednesday it will be.
We started looking into how this guy could look so convincing as an officer. Turns out it's not that hard. You can buy police lights and badges online. The victims described the one he bought as a blue light bar on top of the car, but we bought these for the newsroom a while ago. You can own them, but using them as if you're a cop is the illegal part. So since all this happened, police have been telling you what to do. Cop Police made this video to show you how to stay safe in a traffic stop.
If the area doesn't appear to be safe or well lit, Georgia law allows a motorist to activate their hazard lights before driving to a safe, well-lit area. The activation of the hazard lights lets the officer know that the driver is aware of the officer behind them and that driver is looking for a safe place to pull over.
So, Ron, this is what police have been telling people to do, to slow down, put your hazards on. But as a former police officer, what is this telling you?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do as a former police officer, I'm going to check out the vehicle, get the license plate, and I'm going to call dispatch and say, this is the vehicle that I'm about to stop. I'm going to give the location as well. But what's interesting is I see the flashing lights, so I'm wondering, is the driver going through some type of emergency? You know, what's taking place here? And also, Christy, if I can, I'm trying to see the driver or any passengers in there if they're involved in what they call furtive movements or any type of suspicious movements that I should be concerned about.
It does feel a bit risky, but when you see this, does that signal to you that, hey, the driver sees you?
I would think so. If I pull up behind the driver, got the lights, tapping the siren, whoop, whoop, just letting them know I'm behind them, right? And they turn on their flashing lights, then I'm thinking they're trying to signal to me that there's a little bit more to the stop than what I'm seeing.
Now, one other thing police have been saying is to call 911 and confirm the officer is real. Now, for you, it wasn't for a traffic stop, but a woman actually did that to you to make sure that you were a real officer. You got a little annoyed.
Yeah, I was a little annoyed, but this was a burglary call. It was a cold call, so I went to the doorstep, knocked on the door. Officer, Oakland Police Department. I had the uniform, the hat, the badge, the gun, the baton. My car was sitting out there on the curb. And as she looked through the peephole, she says, I need to call dispatch to make sure you're a police officer. I was a little offended, but, you know, it made a lot of sense. She called dispatch. Dispatch confirmed that I truly was a police officer, and I went about my business.
It was her right, and it went smoothly from there.
Absolutely.
Well, APD spoke about it today. This is how they put it.
But it is imperative that if you're going to follow these steps so that we don't think that you're running from us or fleeing from us, that you slow down substantially and stop in a lighted area once you have confirmation.
Yeah, it's really like walking a tightrope, right? Because you don't want to alarm them, but you want to make sure you're safe.
There's no verbal communication going on, but you're trying to give them signals.
Now, they also say to call 911. Are they afraid if everyone's calling 911 every time they get pulled over, it's going to jam up the emergency lines?
Yeah, that's a real concern. We asked them about that, too. They say it ties up their lines. It also ties up a lot of resources, and it also makes the driving public more apprehensive, which then makes the police officer's job more difficult.
All right, now you're going to find more on this. Thanks so much, Christy, by the way. You'll find more on this developing story right now at 11live.com, including tips on what to do if you're being pulled over and if you're not sure if it's a real officer or a fake officer.
All right, guys, I'm Ron Jones with some of your other top stories in tonight's Speed Feed. The body of an Augusta teenager missing for almost a year has been found in a shallow grave. We've been following this for quite some time. According to our sister station in Augusta, remains found last week have been identified as Latanya Janelle Carwell. She went missing on her 16th birthday. This is last April. Her stepfather, the guy right there on your screen right there, Leon Tripp, was the last person to see her alive. He's now charged with murder and kidnapping. Carwell's mom, Tanya Tripp, is charged with concealing her daughter's death. Well, a former Georgia Tech football player who is now in the NFL is facing a rape charge. Adam Gotsis is currently out of bond. He's currently out of jail on bond. Police say the incident taking place in his home in Atlanta in 2013. The woman reported the rape to authorities last month. Gotsis is from Australia and played for Georgia Tech from 2012 to 2015. The alleged incident taking place during his time with the Yellow Jackets, and the player just finished his second season with the Denver Broncos. DeKalb County police say a 19-year-old man was robbed and shot after he was lured into the woods through a dating app. Dante Copeland told investigators he met a woman, her name is Kayla, on this app. Yesterday, he rode with her from Cobb County to Willowwick Drive in Lithonia, where two men were waiting in some woods. They took Copeland's 2 cell phones, his wallet, and then Kayla shot him in the leg. He's still recovering tonight. And another local firefighter also dying today. Cobb County's Stacy Boulware collapsed today at Station 5 in Vinings after returning from back-to-back incidents. The 44-year-old has successfully completed an annual physical fitness test earlier in the day. Boulware was an 18-year veteran firefighter who has been honored in the past for heroism. Benny?
All right, thanks so much, Ron. Well, it took 6 days, but we finally have a jury for the Tex McIver murder trial. The Atlanta attorney accused of shooting his wife intentionally during a car ride through Midtown. McIver says it was an accident. Here's the makeup of the 12-member jury. It's split right down the middle on gender. You have 6 men, 6 women. Now, 9 of the jurors are white, like the defendant. 3 are African-American. There are also 4 alternates for this jury. Now, opening statements set for tomorrow morning at 9, but earlier tonight, I went back to the scene of the shooting with my legal dream team, defense attorneys Mo Ivory and Meg Strickler. We took a look at the neighborhood Tex McIver was driving through the night he shot and killed his wife. So Edgewood Avenue, that's what you see coming up here. That's the exit that they take. He takes out his gun because he doesn't like the neighborhood that he's in.
Yes, that this very neighborhood is something that made him nervous on a night just like tonight.
Mo, you live in this area, right?
Yes, I live
Describe this neighborhood for us.
You know, this is a historically black district. A lot of activity down here, and it has been in recent years gentrifying massively.
The jury's 6 men, 6 women. You have 9 white jurors, 3 African Americans. That's the breakdown of it. And the question is, will race end up being an issue in this case?
Actually, I think that if race does come up, it could work in his favor. Because if it is really true that he was nervous, there we have the reason why he asked for the gun out of the console.
What I've learned through the years is that juries like to like your client. His past experiences will come in.
Yeah.
Who he is, how he interacts with others, come in.
Yes.
If he's an a-hole, they will figure that out and then deduce that he shot his wife.
If I'm the defense, I'm going to say he is an a-hole, but he's not a killer.
Right.
You embrace it, you admit what you
Yeah.
can't deny.
In this context, you need to.
I think this was about the point where they went into the console and got the gun.
He would have had to fall asleep in between this 10-minute ride from when the gun was given to him out of the console to now it's getting ready to go off. So he was sleeping for the last 8 minutes. As he's driving this way, he ought to be getting ready to put the gun away as things are getting better and better as we start to drive, but the gun is still cocked.
He has guns upon guns upon guns, as we know from violating his bond even. He absolutely loves these things. And so if he has these things, he should certainly know how to handle them.
Yeah, right.
You would never hold it like that if you are 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night and exhausted.
And this is where it would happen.
Tell me if you feel a bump. We've got a lot of bumps right here.
That's plausible.
Let me ask you, we did the drive that Tex McIver,
yes,
his wife Diane, and Danny Joe did. Will the jury, who is from Atlanta, believe that he could have been that scared that he needed to go into his console and get the gun out because of the area we just drove?
Well, it depends on. Fulton County is a very, very large county. Some of the people who will either be from South Fulton or North Fulton.
That's right.
That will make a big difference.
We have 9 white jurors, 3 African-American jurors. So what have been their experiences and where do they live, as you said, and what is their experience with Edgewood Avenue? And that will have a huge impact on whether they believe that he could have been scared enough on Edgewood Avenue.
Deadly explosions rock Austin, Texas during one of the biggest events of the year. Why investigators think the bombings may be racially motivated.
A Griffin man helping out a stranger. The story behind this random act of kindness that's gone viral.
Hey guys, Alec Baldwin is my guest tonight. Plus, Billy Crudup, music from Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats. It's a great show. Stay tuned.